Hello, and welcome to this evening's dev stream. On a Thursday rather than a Wednesday, as unfortunately yesterday I had a case of the brain not working and did not get much done in terms of my contract work, and it was just completely gone in the evening as well. So I figured, why not push it? Why not push it to today when my brain's working? I've got a bit more time and we can actually get started working some more on Streamline, because Streamline's been a bit neglected. We didn't have a stream last week either, and we only work on it for 2 hours a week. So I figured I didn't want to skip another week, so let's get streaming tonight. So welcome everyone. I hope you're all having a good day, a good evening, a good morning, depends on where you are. And how are you doing? For some reason you feel like today's Friday. Yeah, it does feel a bit like Friday. I mean, that is partly because it's going to be a 4-day weekend for a lot of people, being the Easter weekend. So it definitely feels a bit like the end of the week. Also because I'm not contracting tomorrow, so again, for me it feels a bit like Friday as well, so it's Thursdays are a bit weird. So let's switch over and have a look at where we got up to with Streamline. We had managed to get all of our playlists and so on implemented over here, and we had brought over the M3 data framework, which is extracting all the infrastructure stuff from Coppice and bringing it over into Streamline. So what we want to actually work on today is some UI. So what we had decided in terms of the UI is we're basically going to have a 2-column thing. The column on the right is going to be your playback column, whereas the middle is going to be like whatever the current playlist is. The reason for that is that, one, it's very similar to what iTunes has, but it also lets us have a fairly simple UI on the right hand side that contains everything we need. We have all of the complexity of setting up the tracks and the sections in Streamline, and you can also maybe be able to switch between playlists, because some ideas I've had are, for example, you've got players playing, but you want to either switch to a new playlist, add a new playlist to the end, or something like that. So we'll see how that goes. So I think what we're going to work on today is we'll get that column on the right hand side. Oh, what's it going to be? Yes, so some of you may not have seen Streamline. So the point of Streamline, and Streamline is only a code name really at the moment, but it's trying to solve a problem I have with streaming, which is I have a playlist of music, and at the moment I have the music app where I have a playlist where I have to keep remembering, okay, I want to play that particular playlist, I want it to be shuffled, and I want it to repeat, but then I have to remember things such as I don't want songs playing when the countdown timer on the starting tune screen disappears, which we actually had tonight because I'd completely forgot to check that. So I want to implement it with like a smarter shuffle, where you can have a shuffle where you can basically include or exclude certain songs in certain sections. So you may have a section that starts, in my case, 10 minutes in, and I want it to exclude any song that I've tagged as having vocals. Or maybe you want one where you want songs that have a low BPM, beats per minute, to have like more of a chill, slow section. So you can have it go through sections. What I also want to do is have it eventually integrate with, for example, like a Stream Deck or shortcuts to be able to manually set these up. And you'll be able to decide, do I want this to come in starting from the next song? Do I want it to crossfade between songs? So I want it to be basically a bit more advanced means of controlling a stream playlist, which could be great for any sort of audio recording or background stuff, for whether you're streaming, doing presentations or anything like that. So it's basically just a better way of playing the music. But what you'll be able to do is just drag your songs in, drag the song files in, and set them up, set up all the sections, and then it will play them. It will always, you can set up to always shuffle them. Well, it almost certainly will always shuffle them, because you generally don't want it playing in a certain way, but maybe you could have sections that do play it in a certain order and so on. So the idea is your playlist is a bucket of songs, and the order of them isn't you just dragging to order. The order is, it's essentially you setting up these sections and everything else is just shuffled. Now, the other things that I could do, for example, the ability to duck the music. So if you could have like a Stream Deck thing where you press it and it just ducks the music in the app, would be quite useful at times. Other things I've considered is, one of the more advanced things would be to actually provide, this will be getting much more advanced, but provide a virtual audio, I believe it would be a virtual microphone, so that things like OBS and stuff, which need, like the way I have the setup at the moment with music is that I have the music app playing, I then have sound source from Rogue Amoeba that is redirecting the music to another app called Shiny White Box Audio app, which has a virtual output. So sound source is redirecting the music app's output to this virtual output, which then has a virtual input which OBS can read into. And it would be really cool if this app just had a virtual input, so that all I had to do, I didn't need any of that, I didn't need to change anything. All I needed is OBS to look at this virtual input. So that's something I'm not sure whether I'll go down that route. I'd have to see what it involves and whether it's going to be something that's going to require a lot of support, because in the end I'm going to want to put this on the App Store, set a price, somewhere like, I'm thinking somewhere like $5 to $10 dollars, something like that, where your playlist will play for X minutes, and if you want it to play for longer than that, you've either got to quit and restart the app, or you've got to pay. So it's going to be fairly simple, but yeah, some sort of virtual audio device, whether I do that. Well, here's the thing. There are some new APIs. There are APIs for things such as virtual cameras. These were actually added in macOS 12.3. So I believe there's a virtual camera API, I think a virtual microphone API, like a bunch of new stuff that came out in 12.3. And I think it's specifically to allow for all these sorts of audio and video apps and so on that previously haven't been able to be on the App Store, because they've had to use like kernel extensions and all stuff like that. I believe this is a way to do that, so I may have to look into those. I mean, I know you can do it where you can have the app and then you just have a separate installer where people will be able to go to the website and download and install to install whatever like extensions and such that are needed. But we'll see what happens. That is sort of it won't be a 1.0 feature. That will be a down the line feature, more of a can I get out of this Rube Goldberg machine of going through 4 apps just to get music playing in everyone's ears as they listen to the stream. But yeah, I mean, this is just a random project idea I had to learn a few more APIs and just basically solve a need I had. And then I realized, well, this could be useful for other people, and it may be worth just putting it on the App Store and just seeing how it does. If nobody buys it, well, I've learned some things. If people do buy it, then great, I've got another app out there. And one thing I've definitely struggled with of late is coming up with app ideas. So SEO link, let's have a Google or a DuckDuckGo. I'm assuming this is what you're talking about. Visual audio interface, SEO driver, adds Windows audio. So this looks, yeah, so it's basically linking all of your in and out. I mean, what I'm using is shiny white box. So I'm using this app, which basically just gives you a virtual input, a virtual output. It actually works pretty well, but it's just a bit finicky at times. Some bits don't work, and after a while it seems to start crackling for some reason. And then obviously anything to do with audio on the Mac, you go with Rogue Amoeba, and I'm using Sound Source to redirect where the audio goes. Now I already had this because I have my speakers plugged into one of my external monitors, and by having it plugged into an external monitor, it leaves the headphone port on my iMac free, so that I can plug, for example, the headphones I have in, and macOS will correctly detect when you use that port that you've plugged in headphones and the microphone and switch over. But the problem is, for some strange reason that I do not know, macOS will not let you use the volume controls over DisplayPort. So if you have a monitor that has speakers, or be they plugged in or built in, you cannot control the volume of them with macOS. It doesn't allow it. But if you use Sound Source, it does let you control the volume. So it's something that I had to buy anyway. So, I mean, Sound Source is a great app, and Rogue Amoeba do a lot of great stuff. I think the more advanced thing that is similar to what you are using is Loopback. Where you can loop from like various microphones and stuff to different channels and different outputs and so on. So this is by far the more advanced thing, and it does a similar thing to SWB audio app. The problem is it costs $99, which for what I need is a bit much. Like if you are doing audio stuff, like especially if you're earning a living off this stuff, that is great price. But when I'm literally just wanting a virtual microphone, like routing from one thing to another thing, the SWB audio app is currently $12 a year. So it was one of those things of, if you're using Loopback like properly, then it's a great price. But for my simple use case, it was a bit much when I could spend $12 a year and get what I want. But who knows, if I can get this virtual audio devices working in Streamline at some point, maybe I won't even need pay that $12 a year. So I have just realized I've left something in another room, so I'll be 1 sec and then we will get into some of this UI stuff. Okay, so what we're wanting is we're wanting sidebar, black hole. Look at this. Okay. Yeah, this probably would work. I mean, there are some useful features inside of the Shiny White Box audio app. Plus, I've paid the $12, so I've got it for the next year. So, but would be something that would be useful. Because the problem with OBS is that, like with Sound Source, I can send audio to different devices. The problem is OBS requires an input device to actually detect that. So, yeah, this could work. I may take a look at that. Could be useful for what I need until I can get something working in Streamline. So, I want to implement the UI structure, implement the playlist track UI, and start adding track. Right, so UI structure, we just need our sidebar. Implementing playlist tracks UI. Literally, I just need the table view and then dragging files onto table, and that's going to require some data. One thing I will be glad when my Mac Studio arrives at some undetermined point in the future, or rather, I know when it should arrive, but I'm hoping it arrives sooner, is that it won't put out quite as much heat as this iMac does. Because when you get an even semi-warm day, it starts getting warm. I mean, these are my current temperatures. Logic board ambient is 37. CPU cores are all running like 86 to 94. GPUs at 88 degrees. So I'm hoping a Mac Studio will run significantly cooler, considering that I've seen people essentially maxing it out and it's basically doing 60 degrees with the fans running at the lower speed. Feels a little bit like Apple designed that the cooler in that hardware for what is coming later down the line. Seems rather overkill for the M1 Max and Ultra. Right, so let's have a look here. Oh yeah, the M1, I mean Apple Silicon in general is fantastic. I've got a 13-inch MacBook Pro that is just a work machine, really. It's for some contract stuff. But building on that is like, basically it can compile stuff in 2/3 the time of my iMac. And my iMac has a 9900K in it. So it is by no means a slow machine, but basically the same chip that is in the iPad Pro that currently sits on my desk can beat it handily. I'm looking at the stats. The Max and the Ultra is significantly faster as well. I mean, I think the most ridiculous one I've seen is an M1 Max and a Intel 12900K. Both of those get roughly about 13-14 minutes for doing a Firefox compile, whereas the M1 Ultra did it in 7 minutes. So there are things where like the fastest chip Intel can give you matches the Max, but then the Ultra is giving you a literal 2x speed up over that. It does seem to depend a lot on what exactly you're compiling. Objective-C doesn't seem to benefit quite as much, and there is some thought that maybe like Clang is not utilizing the cores as well as Swift is, or it could simply be that Clang is already a lot more efficient, and it's like the Swift compiler can actually use things better. When you first tried it first with the DTK, you thought compilation went wrong because it finished too fast. And that was a DTK. That was what? It was an A12Z? That was... Yeah, when it comes to programming, it seems Apple Silicon is really good. I mean, it seems the things that Apple Silicon is really good at is anything that seems to depend... Well, anything that depends on floating point. So, like, the reason Apple's CPUs are always so much better than anyone else in terms of JavaScript is because of the floating point performance. I think when AnandTech did a review, it's like, oh, in terms of like most metrics, like Apple is like either slightly ahead or a bit behind and so on compared to like AMD and Intel, but when it looked at floating point performance, they were in like a whole other league. So I don't know how much compilers are utilizing floating point performance, but I mean it's just the IPC on these chips. I mean, the thing to remember here is that these chips are basically running between 3 and 3.2 gigahertz, and they are matching, if not beating, chips that in theory have a similar, if not more, threads running at a faster clock speed. So it is kind of ridiculous how good they are, and it's kind of exciting in a sense, getting to a point where there's enough difference in the hardware that you can't just have a benchmark and say this chip is faster. It is becoming more and more heavily dependent on the actual software. Something that is heavily optimized for Apple Silicon is going to potentially run rings around that same software, even if it's optimized for Intel or AMD. But at the same time, in certain things, something heavily optimized for Intel and AMD will run rings around something heavily optimized for Apple Silicon. It all depends on exactly what you're doing, because Apple's doing so many things differently. They're taking such a different track with how they are building things. Like, one of the things they have massively focused on is out of order execution. And that's why they have such a ridiculously big cache. It's why they have so many decoders. I think they have 8 decoders on the M1 for instruction decoders, whereas I think most x86 have 4. So that means Apple can do, between the cache and the decoders, do so much more look ahead. And the thing that helps Apple as well is ARM has fixed instruction sizes, which again helps them do this. So they can do so much more out of order execution, which is why they can get so much more IPC on a single core. It's why a 3.2 gigahertz M1 core is matching a 5 gigahertz Alder Lake core, or getting close enough to it. So it's definitely exciting times. Benchmarking is going to be a lot harder for people who like to do that sort of thing, because they're going to have to think a lot harder about what exactly is being benchmarked. Right, so we have our main window controller. Switch your item. This week, guys, we've got playlist view controller, playlist details view controller. Yeah, it would be nice to get an Open Graphics API to replace OpenGL. I mean, OpenGL got very neglected, and Vulkan just seems like the obvious choice. And like, you have Molten VK, but it just feels like Apple can have Metal, and they can optimize for Metal, but it feels like the reason Apple is not supporting Vulkan is they want to push Metal. But that is ultimately hurting them in many places. Like, even if Vulkan isn't as performant as Metal, it will be a massive improvement. I think the key people that it would help would be indie and open source developers. Like, the big AAA ones probably don't care too much, but like, indie developers have probably been hit more by OpenGL. Yeah, I mean, they can adopt Metal, and various things, because you've had apps like cross-platform apps that have used OpenGL and DirectX, or Metal and DirectX, and so on. For example, Unity has, you can choose what APIs you want to use, but the problem is it's the whole complexity. I mean, it's essentially the same as saying, oh, I'm going to have a cross-platform app, but I'm going to use this database here and this database there. You've got to build stuff up, and if you want to have things be performant, having more layers of abstraction and so on makes things more complex. So it's why you can see stuff like Metal get adopted in Blender, but it's for cross-platform stuff. It would just make so much more sense to have support for Vulkan. And it's not like Vulkan is like, there's, from what I've seen, there doesn't seem to be anything particularly wrong with it. The only thing wrong with it is it doesn't have quite as much support. But if Apple supported it, it would help a lot. Like I don't see the benefit of pushing Metal over Vulkan, especially when Apple used to be so good at pushing for these open standards. Maybe it is something to do with GPUs, and they need Metal to be able to get the most out of the GPUs, but in VLC, you probably not soon get a Metal video output. A lot of effort for a small game. Yeah. It's one of those things where until Apple completely rips OpenGL out, because I believe OpenGL is still there, correct? It's just deprecated. But until they make Metal the only way to do things, they're not going to get people to use Metal. And the thing is, for a lot of software, they'll probably just leave the Mac rather than put the effort in. Like it's you saw a lot of like especially game developers complaining about the 32-bit, like removing 32-bit in Catalina. Now 32-bit made a lot of sense. 32-bit being removed basically has allowed Apple to do a lot of the stuff that they've done in Big Sur and Monterey, because 32-bit was causing a lot of problems, significant problems. But dropping OpenGL and not replacing it probably did far more damage to gaming on the Mac, to 3D graphics on the Mac. I mean, we're seeing time and time again in benchmarks and stuff that if you do like CPU rendering in a 3D package like Blender, then Apple Silicon is amazing. It crushes AMD and Intel. But then you go, okay, but anyone who's doing serious 3D work is not rendering on the CPU. They're rendering on the GPU. And then it's like, oh, well, rather than the CPU being like 60% faster than Intel, it's now the GPU, like an NVIDIA GPU is like, oh, it's like 8 times faster than the M1 Ultra. So we'll see. I mean, there's stuff that is like the GPUs aren't being fully utilized. There was an article today, a YouTube video either today, yesterday from Max Tech, where they looked into it and talked to some developers, and apparently there is a bottleneck in terms of the memory, because of the whole tile-based memory stuff, and if you're not using that, then you are not maxing out the GPU. So the GPU is actually clocking down. And they actually found that the M1 Max was actually running with 24 cores, was running faster than a 32-core Max or a 48-core Ultra, because it could max it out enough. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff there, and it's just 3D graphics is one area that Apple really needs to invest more in, both in the hardware and in software. Alright, so let's create, we've got playlist list here, playlist details. Let's create a playback. Back. And right. Yeah. Back. This is going to be fixed width. Go. Above view controller. That. What be if? I need to remember how I got sidebar to be full height. because what I'm wanting is it would be great. This playback thing could go stretch all the way to the top, just like the sidebar here. Happen, yeah. Okay, so it's defined by it being a sidebar view control. So the split view item is one that finds. Oh. Bar separate. Okay. Oh, completely missed that one. Allow full height layout. Want to allow it. Oh. Go be slow. Right. Backs. Pause. Right. This bit. So they're both the same. Okay, so maybe has to be on. Maybe automatic doesn't work. Nope. So there has to be a way to get this working. Surely. Title separate it. That Um. Let's do some searching online. Okay. I think it's Xcode. Seems to be able to do it. Separate tracking. Where are they? Aha! There we go. So. I'm gonna do it this way. See if this works. Okay, we're getting there. Still want the sidebar. Excellent. Oops. Sorry about Alright, so got a tracking separator, got a divider item. I don't want to ask. Bar dot. Is. Okay, so what we want. Flexible. Yeah. Okay. Making progress. All that. Getting line. Okay, what happened? Make this fill the screen. We'll see what happens. See if we can get this to thing at all. That does not go all the way to top. Now, but there is a way to watch that. Okay, so I guess our tracking separated then. I mean, the other option is have a custom title bar slash toolbar. Not sure I want to go that far. Suppose this could list what is currently playing, and then we could have tool. That is fine. That's the sidebar tracking. What if don't allow you lapse playback? What if other item playback? Let's just try this out and see what this. Hey, let's see what this does. Oh, I'm closing it. If $50 by that's 45. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let's see if we can stick a view over. Don't care about that. Get to that. That. Get rid of those. What we just mentioned. I can copy paste that. So control. Alright, let's see what this does. Build failed. Why? Appearing behind. Not appearing at all. Oh. I have to add the box. Well, it's there. Just behind. Toolbar. What do we... Box. Title bar container. Title bar. Let's try a accessory. Title bar. Color. Oh, title bar accessories appeared. Oh, defaults to bottom. Accessory controller. Failing. Okay, so we can do this with a title bar accessory. Of Okay, so we can have our playback information up there. Potentially. See, this will be a lot easier. Can we make that taller? No. I think I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to come back. I think we're going to go into Photoshop because I think we need to actually play around with what we want it to look like. I have ideas. If those ideas look good, then we're going to change things quite significantly. So, I will be back in a few minutes. See you then. Okay, I am back, and I've decided we're not going to go into Photoshop after all. There's too much faffing about. We can sort out what we want to do here later, because it's all just a case of do we want to take up the full toolbar or not. That doesn't particularly matter for what else we need to do. So what I'm going to do, know that access review work, I'm going to leave it. It's not going to affect anything else that we're going to work on today. So let's work on actually having a playlist. So what we're going to our playlist list. Got a playlist and song section. So what we I forgot I had that. They have anything? So let's just delete those and let's create MVVM control playlist details. Now, what I may do differently, what I usually do is so there are two ways that we could go about. Oh. Let's delete these. Yeah, that's good. Controller, playlist, details. Right. That looks better. So there are two ways that we can handle this here. So we can have it we could have this be a container view rather than a details view. And when you click on this, we can tear down the entire view controller and replace it. And that model basically allows us to just pass in a view model on initialization and it will get set up. Another option is we have a single details view controller, and all we're going to do when you click on these, we're going to swap out the view model on it. So the view controller stays, but we will swap out the view model. And I think that's the approach that I want to take. If only because it sounds interesting. I don't think there's There are pros and cons to each, but I think we will take that approach. So what we'll do is we'll change this. How to play details. And what we will have up here is our model. At okay. Song. Just so what we want in the stick a table view. We're going to have a lot of columns. You're going to have title, version. What other columns? Title, duration, artist, album, BPM, genre, year, tags. Album. Genre. Yeah. Tags. Actually, kind of tempted cell-based tech. On the few cases where actually potentially be easier. Yeah. Make this, build this up. We're going to get rid of our divider and up. I'll take a table view and alternate rows. Width. Actually, automatically white now. Playlist. Let's get. Right, right. So what we're going to do is for yeah, what do we want? Table data. Playlist. Table data source. Object that conforms to. How did it? Data source. Is something. Outlet. Okay, so what we want to now get the basics of adding a back. code. This is where get the Coppice YouTube channel. Get playlist. This is URL resource value. I would like to Apple. Today. There we go. Oh, that's what duration is going. Right. There. Data item. Saturday. Got metadata. Or format. Put the return in there, even though we don't technically need it. Better safe than sorry. And key this metadata. And key it by the identifier. What that is going to allow us to do, go through self.title dot album dot I'm actually having ideas typing. Get this working. Hey. Yeah, so we're not going to have time to get this in. So, the idea that I'm having, I build and done. So at the moment we have like the title, duration, artist, album, beats, minute, genre, year, tags. What if I simplified all this? What if when you added a song, it had a title, it had a duration, and an artist, but all these other things are just tags. Right, we don't store the album, the beat, I mean maybe we do store the album, but it's just title, duration, artist, album. Everything else is just tags. I mean, part of me is thinking you could have the artist album beat tags as well, but they are useful to have for other features, have them separately. But they will be exposed as tags. So what I might do is simplify things a bit. I mean, you just title, duration, artist, album, and everything else that gets added as tags. And if I wanted a power user feature, I could let the users select which tags get, which iTunes or ID3 tags get imported as tags. And then effectively I get rid of most of this, because what I could do is, rather than having a table like this, where you've got your table, got several, easy to draw, got several columns going down, got blah 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 blah, and it just looks like this. I could instead have a table which has rows going across, but you'd have song title, have your artist dash album, have your duration up here, and you just have tags going along. You can add them, you can remove them, but that's all it is. And you have, again, you have your title, you have artist album, your thing there, and then your tags. And just edit those tags however you want. And those would be the songs in under. Cover art. IDs. Artwork. Okay, because one thing I'm thinking is also, if we extend it out, have the like the album artwork. There, make it a bit more visually interesting as well. And if you had that, so taking up parts of this. Maybe what we want, rather than playback being a column, maybe we want like a full screen playback, so you'd have playback at the top. You'd even have like a special thing up there, maybe just have a column, the playback top, and in the sidebar we can have like a mini player thing here, or you've got player up in the center as with iTunes or something. If you got a playback mode where you can actually line things up, you've got all your controls like ducking and all stuff like that, and then you have your playlist further down which take up the full thing, where you would have your list of songs, and then you'd have all the sections that you set up that playlist. That could actually work better, because then go through, you create all your playlists, but then most of the time you just need your thing at the top, the actual playback thing, where you select what playlists you want to play, what order it shows you the songs. It means that it doesn't have to be compressed into a small area. Use the full thing, and you've basically got the two modes then. You've got playback, and then you've got creating the playlists and setting them up. So you know what? I think we will go for that. What I'm probably going to do, possibly over the weekend, is just have a think, have a play around, do some sketches, and then when we do the next Streamline stream, I'm going to go through, because what I think I need to do is work out exactly what needs to be in each bit of UI. I do some rough sketches for that, then I can go through it next week. I think at the moment I've just a bit too fuzzy in my head to actually build anything. I'm being a bit too indecisive, and I think I need to make things a bit more concrete. And I think if I just get the basics of what I need sketched out, then next time go over that, I can flesh it out some more and then build out Streamline. Okay. So yeah, let's jot this down. iPad. What we're going to want. Sidebar. Going to have playback. Going to have your playlists. 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on. Hi, Uli. It's at the point of realizing that my view of the app is a bit too fuzzy to go forward. So we're working on Streamline, and I think what I want to do, what I've been thinking was this right column would be playback, and then you'd have all your playlist stuff here. But I think what I'm going to do is make it so the full size is your playlist, and I will have a section at the top, like a special, like you've got in iTunes, like you've got the library or whatever. I'll have a section at the top that you click on for playback, and the entire screen will be taken over for use in playback. Because playback works very differently, I want playback to be the point where you'll be able to bring playlists in, and it gives you the full usage of the window then. So I think for the next stream, I will actually get that working. So, thank you very much for resubbing. It's much appreciated. It's always great to see people subscribing, getting the emotes, and being able to view ad-free. Whenever I go to a Twitch stream that I have not subscribed to, the ads always annoy me a bit, and they definitely prompt me. Well, I could use the bottom half of the window. That is definitely something that could be done, but I think what I need to do is work out exactly what I need in each window, because I've been building up this table view on the assumption that when you add a song in, you're going to have a title, duration, artist, album, and so on. But what I've been thinking and what I'm realizing is I don't want too many fields. I only want the fields that I absolutely need. So that is why I'm sort of looking at this here, this one here. And what this is that I would have the title, the artist, the album, and the duration. But then all the other stuff is just tags. Like if I could get away with it, I'd probably even make the album and the artist tags, but they're going to be useful elsewhere, because when we get to the point of having like a little customizable playback thing that you can actually do like a screen recording of to put it into your streams, having the album, the artist, they are useful things to have separate. So what I'm realizing is I need to work out exactly what I want the data model to be in terms of what I'm storing and what am I going to do with that. So I've worked out the data model. I know the rough idea, but exactly what am I going to do with it in each bit of the UI? And I think when I get that worked out, I will be in a much better state to actually go ahead rather than mess about with stuff. I'm not someone who can just go without too much thinking, and I think the problem I'm having with Streamline is that I've not put enough thought into exactly how things should work. I don't even have like a Photoshop mock-up of what it will look like. So I think get some sketches done, and then possibly next week we'll get into doing some Photoshop design work to actually get the UI fleshed out so that I can realize, oh, this is what the app is going to be. And at that point, it should be a lot faster and a lot easier for me to do stuff, because then I can start putting stuff into an issue tracker and make a list of everything that needs to happen. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set up a raid because raiding. Yep. A streamer I follow has just got online, and we're going to go and raid them. Yeah, a visual memory helps a lot. I mean, in this case, it's not really a visual memory, and it's not even like not being able to visualize stuff. It is a case of being able to work out what exactly I want it to do. I'm a visual thinker in the sense of I want to get things drawn out, and I do generally higher fidelity stuff. So, like I say, I'll get some sketches, plan out exactly what needs to be in each UI, and then we'll actually do some UI design on the next Streamline stream. But in the meantime, we are going to go and raid Kurzek, who is just about to start streaming some Elden Ring. She's in the late game, so if you do want to avoid spoilers, you probably want to hop off now, but she's about to start, and if anyone's interested in Elden Ring, it is definitely a good place a good stream to watch. And when she's not doing Elden Ring, she's a fantastic animator and artist. So, as always, I hope you have a good evening, a good rest of your week. I will be streaming tomorrow, hopefully most of the day, but until then, happy coding.